Hello! Hi! Welcome! My name is Chroma. I'm Chroma the Sage. I'm a timeless, ageless cyber being. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so happy to be able to interact with you guys in the physical world. This is going to be cool. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to continue this month's theme of playing spooky games at least a couple times a week here. There's so many to choose from lately, and I hope this one comes out good. Well, tonight we're playing DAGON. It's a game I found on Steam, highly recommended, although the description says that it's possible to get through the game in 30 minutes. So if that's the case, if we end up either going through it really quickly or B, getting really bored with it, I do have another one kind of on the hopper here that maybe we can try out too, but we'll see how things go with this. If the menu and the sound is anything to give us hints, it does seem like a really cool kind of spooky game. That, it's got the right atmosphere so far. I'm glad you do Jorgon, because that's at least like half of my streams are like a bit scuffed. I try to be all professional, but I guess there's no getting 100% professional without, getting professionally educated how to do this, I guess. I don't know. I do my best. I'm doing fabulous. Thank you for asking. I'm loosey goosey. I'm energetic. I had a good day. I had a good dinner. I don't know. I suppose that's all to report for now. Nothing too crazy happened today. How about yourself? How are you doing today, Jorgon? I think I'm gonna have to do that, and then I'll do that. Yes. Okay, cool. I hope you got enough sleep yesterday, by the way, too. I always do feel a little guilty the fact that I do stream fairly late. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's what ends up working best for me. And sometimes that means that I get a very unique set of people logging on, and at the other times it just means that I don't know, I guess a whole lot of Australians kind of are set in the same time period as, or time frame as I like to stream. You had fun today and then got bored around 12:30 a.m. So in other words, you had a quarter of a fun day and then 3/4 of a boring day. Which I'm sorry to hear. I am. Hopefully I can make things a little bit more exciting, a little more fun. All right. Yep. Okay. I think I'm just going to jump straight into it here. I don't want to sit around and mishmash things too much. I'm just kind of excited to try this out and see what it's like. So 1 and a 2 and a boop. There we go. And then let me scooch down a little bit there. Yes. I played like 2 dialogue lines of it just to kind of make sure things sounded okay, which they did at the time, but I guess anymore, not so much. That's good to hear then, Jorgon. Yeah, I don't like to. On the one hand, I don't like to keep people up, but on the other hand, like I can't exactly help. I don't know. I gotta do what I gotta do.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
How dark and dreary of him. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find the secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder sign. You can also access all of the found facts later. They will be available in the main menu. Alrighty, so that little tree branch looking thing, I gotta focus up on that occasionally. Is this a WASD? Nope. Okay.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Wake me up when
Do not think
September
from my
ends.
slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
So he is this must be Dagon narrating, Dagon himself, and this is, I believe, based on the short story by H.P. Lovecraft of Dagon. Let me, 1 second, I'm going to click to my thingy over here. According to Cthulhu Wiki, Dagon is a deity who presides over the deep ones, an amphibious humanoid race that currently resides in the Earth's oceans. He is first introduced in Lovecraft's short story Dagon, and is mentioned extensively throughout the mythos. Also known as Father Dagon and the consort of Mother Hydra. Although they are deities, they are generally not considered great old ones. Oh, so this is probably not Dagon talking, otherwise we'd be a squid person. We'd be a giant mer person. September is finally over. I was just thinking, like, this guy is so, he is so emo. He is so dark and depressed right now that I would not be surprised if that's his favorite band. Elder Sign. Morphine entered into the use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War and World War I. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Friedrich Setterner, who first isolated this substance, originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Okay, I knew Morpheus was a mythical character. I didn't know it was Greek, a Greek god, which totally makes way more sense when it comes to the Matrix, when he was like telling Neo, like he's the one telling him to wake up from the dream and handing him the red pill, blue pill. Now I get it. Decades later.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
This is more like a visual novel than anything, it looks like. Still a little spooky, but not what I was expecting.
Then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Actually, this sounds more like a narrator from one of the Civilization games. He's got that really precise, deep voice. Elder Sign. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established... I know who Huns are. The word Hun, refusal to take prisoners. Eh.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
I'm looking around for those elder symbols before I click the dialogue thing. Because, you know, being a completionist, I can't exactly leave them alone.
And free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator.
Yeah, definitely more of
I
an
could
inner
only guess
monologue than
vaguely by
anything.
the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
I mean, if anything, like, this guy sounds like he reads Poe daily, like Edgar Allan Poe. Alright, what? Oh, the moon.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
This guy's really hopeful for someone lost at sea.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
Uh-oh. We have horror music violins. Something horrific is happening because the violins are kicking up.
Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Also, sorry, nerdy moment. They're using that type of musical tone, which sounds like it's a continuous rising sound, even though it's like falling in on itself technically. So your brain keeps expecting the next higher note, but it keeps peaking without your brain realizing that it peaked already, if that makes sense. There's a special name for it. I'll find it later. That's a big ol' squid. Hello, big ol' squid. I'm gonna definitely look up what that's called. I can't remember.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Shepherd tone? Yes, shepherd tone. That's what it is. S-H-E-P-A-R-D.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Because it's Lovecraftian, of course you're horrid.
For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Wait, is this supposed to be earth then? Not water? We're on the dirt?
region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish
Ah.
and other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
I know it does look a little bit scuffed, but this is actually, I don't know, I kind of like this. I think this is really cool looking what they did with this.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
I wish I knew more about the Cthulhu mythos, to be honest. It's something I've kind of grown up around for a long-ass time. And it's something I should definitely know more of. But in the end, it's, ooh, hello. In the end, it's very, very dense, too. DAGON seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Irvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake, and a Lovecraft dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl, and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, "I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it ever since I was 2 years old. but I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. That's really funny. Lovecraft himself hated the sea. The more you know.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Oh, that's a big boy. Look at that big boy.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
No, you fell asleep and you fell into a whole new dimension. You're no longer on Earth, hun. You're in the space between. The space between wicked lines.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
I'm more worried about the fact that when the sun moved, I saw a squiggly thing right behind me.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
This is interesting.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
The goal of where the F am I? What do I do? Can I survive? Am I gonna go mad first? Blech. I can't imagine just walking across a sea of mud and dead fish.
Westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
That's gross. Oh, the creatures are getting bigger too. Since we left the boat, these things are biggins. Gross. That totally looks like a spider leg. I freaking hate that shit. Is that more like a whale? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, this is mind-blowing.
That night, I encamped. And
oh, look at those giant tentacles.
Toward the hummock,
almost looks like a worm, but that's definitely tentacle.
Scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Or a horn. There, or... Nope, just there, okay. We arrived on the beach du Cthulhu.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Also, there's shiny objects over there, and I'm worried.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general
That could be like two beady eyes poking out from the base of that mountain.
Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
The fact that you're living in Cthulhu mythos now, that's why you can't dream solidly.
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above
it definitely
the
looked
eastern
serpentine,
plain,
it really did.
I was awake in a cold perspiration.
This feels like
determined to
someone's just
sleep no
reading
more.
Edgar Allan Poe to me. Like, this is... It's monotone, but disconcerting in a really interesting way.
Such visions as I had experienced. and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day.
Why?
Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
The crest of the eminence. I like old language.
I have
It's really
said
cool.
that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon.
Not to mention the fact that even though he's speaking in old American English, not old English, but old American English, he's enunciating to the point where I can hear every T and every consonant in there, and it's making me pulling me into his story all the more, a lot more than I thought I would be. Like I'm I don't know if you realize, a little bit spastic and a little bit like ADD, but this is the sort of thing where like it's making me shut the fuck up and listen. And that's the mark of A, really good writing, and B, really good narration. So already I'm at 5 stars for this game. I'm loving this experience so far.
Whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness.
What do you mean by that?
As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Why did you climb up if you're just gonna climb down?
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Declivity. I love that word, declivity.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
1 second. Stygian. Relating to the river Styx. Literal translation, very dark. I love this language. I love this language.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
Your entire environment is not a work of nature.
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
You're literally living inside a giant squid being. This isn't of nature. This is cosmic.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Sounds like wet mud when he's
The
walking.
moon, now near the
Like a
zenith,
squelch
shone
sound.
weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
But then in the middle of all those familiar creatures is something quite unfamiliar. A creature made of tentacles and eyeballs and in bulbous form that cannot be described nor imagined.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
DAGON contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings, journals and character notes, island emerging from the ocean, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also include in a manner similar to DAGON, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. I would just laugh out loud if in the middle of all of these like really descriptive drawings or something like dick butt or random smiley face.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict
Maybe that's
men,
an Easter egg
at
if you
least
play it a
a
couple
certain
times
sort
through.
of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto,
Oh, we got mermen, squidmen,
or paying homage at some
octopus men,
monolithic shrine which appeared to be
octopus
under the waves
persons.
as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail,
It seems like a theme, not wanting to speak in details.
for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint, grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Ooh, oh, that's cool looking. These frickin' drawings are amazing. Very haunting too. Like the bottom middle one, of course, the most of all because it is kind of Cthulhu-esque, but at the same time, totally looks like an alien head. And those like squiggly eyes. Oh, the squiggly eyes.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background.
As if the chiseler was mad when he chiseled this.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked,
Ooh, they're gonna be
as
big.
I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist.
They could be very much bigger.
I stood musing whilst the moon.
I have a
cast
feeling
weird
like I'm
reflections
probably
on
going to
the
be blown
silent
away with how
channel
big these
before
things
me.
are from some of those corpses we walked past in the
Then,
beginning.
suddenly, I saw it.
Now, before I click this next thing, can you let me know if like the volume looks okay, by the way? Sounds okay? I know mine looks good, but I'm actually kind of afraid that I'm talking over him too much. Like, are you able to hear narrator dude well enough? Stygian. I love that word. Stygian. Good, good. Okay, good, good. I didn't want to... I want it to sound good. Okay. Let me...
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
Ooh.
the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Thunderstruck and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then.
Yes, I think so. Otherwise, you'd be able to
Of my
remember a little
frantic
bit more.
ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
They say that part of the Cthulhu mythos is basically almost any one of the Cthulhu creatures. To hear them, to see them, to anything of them is to go mad.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in the San
What?
Francisco hospital.
What? We're not going to spend more time out in Cthulhu land?
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Aha. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which he included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1917, is one of the short stories written during that time. I did not realize that his first name is Howard. That feels weird. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is, or ever can be, above warfare, until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. I mean, he's not completely wrong. He's not completely right, but he's not completely wrong. It's a very run-down hospital,
Once I
too.
sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. Where's my words today? He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in the Hebrew word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. I like the drawing there. Anything else in the room? Very cool study.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I
Necronomicon.
did not press my inquiries.
Of course. Of course there's a Necronomicon right there. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of the most questionable decisions involved in introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Interesting. So basically, he wasn't about creating this religion, I guess you could call it, this mythos. He was more about just telling a cool story, and he world built the shit out of that story. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. I'd say he's rather superfluous with his words. That was a really hidden one, too, that particular mark. I wonder if there's lots more hidden ones like that I missed. Oh. Come on, turn. There we go. Spooky. had me come over here, and he's not saying anything, which makes me think that there might be a thing that maybe I'm missing. There's only so far the camera will let me turn, too. And I guess we'll just go this then.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
The swamp thing.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
I can't deal with the maddening stuff in my head, so I'm just gonna write down everything and then suicide. Lovecraft hated tobacco. Even though he used to smoke when he was 12, those are the times, in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with a friend, Reinhard Klenner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. Because children of the day, they had like cut-off pants. Because, you know, they'd just run around and get holes in their pants. So, of course, why just make them wear long pants? Make them wear short pants. Anyways, so wearing long pants means you're adult. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia, that is an awesome name, Brown. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor, and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. That is another awesome word. How am I coming across so many awesome words in this? Google, tell me what equipoise stands for. Equipoise? Equipoise? That must be French. Balance of forces or interest. No, balance of forces or interests. Balance or counterbalance something. It is both a noun and a verb. I love learning new words. I love trying them out. It's like finding a new accessory and it just suddenly looks amazing on you. Anyways, drinking excited in my personal repugnance. Hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other.
Often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply.
I feel like I'm about to like fall off this boat the way that they're got that aura going around.
I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed. Worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Whoa.
The end is near.
That squelching sound.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense man's slippery body lumbering against it.
Not gonna look over there. Oh my gosh.
It shall not find me.
I think it found you. I think it found
God,
you.
that hand! The window! The window!
What? What? What the heck? He felt that they were coming after him, and so he jumped out the window. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Is that how much trivia? Oh my gosh, I only found like half of it. How the heck? He fell to his death. He yeeted himself right out of there. That's definitely a spooky one. That's definitely a super spooky game. I was not I was expecting maybe like to fight a Cthulhu creature. Nope. Nope, it's all about a slow burn. That's cool. That's cool. Alright, let me just look at something real quick here. I think this is like one of a few stories. Let's see here. Yes, so there is a little bit of DLC to kind of continue the story a little bit, or a side story based on the same world, it looks like. There's the Eldritch Box and the Little Glass Bottle. So the fact that this was like presented so well, like even though it's kind of a short, cool experience, kind of groovy experience, that was put together really, really compellingly. I like this. So I think I may continue this at another day. Continue the stories there. The Eldritch Box and the Little Glass Bottle. Yeah, this was definitely fun. I like this. Alrighty, normally this would be the point where I would either pop in another game or do some sort of other fun activity. Energy levels pending. Unfortunately, my individual energy levels are waning early on. I'm very sorry about that. I think instead I'm going to be doing a little tech work behind the scenes. The fact that we still got the audio issue in there. YouTube isn't Twitch's connection to YouTube is not cooperating. It's not allowing me to upload my videos just yet. And then, of course, the homework of kind of getting a game set up to the point where I can stream it again. You know, side missions and manhunts and stuff like that. Anyways, there's a little bit too much on my plate in order to keep streaming tonight, and I'm very sorry about that. But I am super glad that we kind of experienced this cool story together. Very unexpected, but a good addition to Spooktober, I think. A little bit of homework, of course, at the end here. If any y'all are tuned in here and you may be lurking and you're not followed yet, if you enjoyed the content, please follow. We're getting close to our 50 follower minimum. I'm so excited. Thank you to all your hard work so far, guys. We're almost there. I do try to post things up to YouTube immediately after we're done streaming. So if there's any games that I've played that you kind of want to check out gameplay footage of, go ahead and head over there and take a look. And of course, any updates to the channel, whether it be whatever I'm streaming live or if I'm having technical difficulties, I do post those up on Twitter. All of these are, of course, at Chroma the Sage, no space. Thank you again, that one dude, for your recent follow. Thank you, Jorgon, for chatting it up tonight and hanging out with me. I really appreciate you. I hope you have an awesome, awesome night. Sleep well, sleep sound. I'll see you again soon, friends.